Hey, hi. In this video, we're going to see how to deploy a Python Flask application on Amazon Lightsail containers. So as you know, Amazon Lightsail container is a platform as a service which will help you to provide multiple computing environments where you can deploy our application. So here we're going to see how to use Amazon Lightsail container options to deploy an example Python Flask application as a container and application, right? So as you see in this screen, currently I'm in a AWS document called "How to Serve a Flask App with Amazon Lightsail Container Tutorial." Basically, I'm going through this particular document and making a lab session here. So we're gonna see how to create a Flask application. I have already have a Flask application, by the way. Now let's see how to wrap that Flask application into a Docker image and use that Docker image to deploy a container application in the Docker desktop locally. And then we're going to see how to deploy the same container image on Amazon Lightsail for containers. And then we see that our application is up and running fine there as well. So here, first option is to create Flask application. For that case, I have already have a Python Flask application here. So I'm going to take you to the my VS Code. So currently I'm in my VS Code, and example Flask app is my application. It is nothing but it's one of my product from my company, and this product is meant for a hospital management purpose. Now I'm not going to walk you through these the source code because that is a private source code. But in this demo, what we see is we're going to see that how we can convert this Python Flask application source code into a container image and deploy that container image on the local Docker desktop, and also deploy that container image on also the in the Amazon Lightsail, which is our main focus, right? So for that case, as you see here, this is the source code directory structure. So this is my the root directory name. Underneath that we have a static template app.py containers.json. We have a SQL file, we have a Docker file, we have a help file, we have a public endpoint file, requirement files. Yeah. Now, so here Docker file is nothing but it's a file which defines the set of commands which will dictate that how this application can be wrapped as a container image, or nothing but how to build a container image for this particular source code. That's what this Docker file dictates. I'm going to quickly walk you through this one, and then later we're going to build a Docker image out of it, or nothing but container image out of it. So here we are actually using Python 3.12 Alpine image, nothing but that is nothing but your virtual machine image. With using that image, we are actually building a container image here. So here we are actually exposing over port number 5000 TCP, creating a directory called app, and then copying the file name requirements.txt. If I go to the requirement.txt, so in the requirements.txt file, we have a Flask and Flask-MySQL database, because I'm using MySQL database to store the databases, informations of the application. So nothing but my database here is MySQL, regular expressions. Okay. So that's what the copy requirements.txt file contains. And then I'm running two run commands, that is basically install the necessary system dependencies. And then later it will try to invoke the requirements.txt file, nothing but the Python modules mentioned in this txt file will be installed post that. Basically, in the sense, if you directly jump for installing these Flask and Flask and MySQL Python modules, you're gonna encounter an error. That's the reason these are all the system dependencies has to be installed in this container image, and then we're gonna hit pip install for the modules being mentioned in the requirement.txt file. And then we are running command called copy, which is actually copies all the files and folder structure present underneath this root, underneath this particular root folder structure. And then we are telling our application invocation always starts from app.py file. If you are a Flask application developer, you would be knowing that app.py file is nothing but the initiation of the Flask application. And as you see, I will just gonna give you a hint about my application. So this is HSM, that is hospital operations management kind of application, and it is of nearby you see that it is of 1631 line. Okay, that is basically my one of my recent product which I have built, and I'm going to launch it soon on this from my portfolio side as well. Now, with that being said, we have walked you through the Docker file. Now let's see, the next step. The next step is to build a container image out of this particular Flask application and deploy on the basically, deploy this particular application or run this container on the local desktop, right? So basically, let's see how to do that. To do that, basically what we are doing is we have to run these two commands, that is docker build and docker run, right? So here prerequisites becomes your system should be installed with the Docker desktop. In my case, I have a Docker desktop being installed, and that's the reason you see that if I go to the Docker desktop application and go to the images, currently I don't have any images. I don't have any container applications running as well. Now let's get started to run these commands. So for that case, what I do is I'm going to go to the PowerShell, and after going to the PowerShell, I need to switch to the directory, that is to D directory. And from the D directory, basically I need to go to this particular directory where my application is running. So I'm going to walk you through these commands, whichever I'm copying from here, later case of this one. So I'm going to do a cd to this path, and then we're going to run those commands, that is basically docker build. So what does this docker build command does? That is docker build -t -flask container. This is Flask container is nothing but the name of the container image, right? So what does this docker build does is, I'm gonna tell you a lot, basically I give you more information here. If you do a ls, you see that it contains all those files and folders that belongs to my source code. Nothing but source code belongs to my application. Now in this source code, one file is called docker file, which actually tells how the container image should be built for your application. That's the reason we are using docker build -t and give the name of that container image called Flask container, where dot is nothing but it will going to search the docker file which is being created underneath this directory. Okay, so I'm going to hit this enter now. So as you see here, the docker is actually initiating creating a container image, and you see that image is being created very quickly. Since the image has been previously built, so it is getting created very quickly. But if you are trying to deploy it for the first time or trying to create a container image for the first time, it's going to take a time, right? So once that is being done, we can actually come back to the Docker desktop UI and try to see that the Flask container image is now appearing here, and you see that it is created just basically if I do a refresh, it's basically created just now, yeah. And you see that it is unused. Now let's go to the next command, that is how to run this locally. So to run that locally, what we do is we're going to run this command, that is docker run -p 5000:5000 Flask container. Okay, so if I do this command, what is happens is basically it will use that container image and tries to deploy as a container application and runs it locally, right? So for to do that, you can go back to the containers. Now you see that the application is running now, right? You can access this application by clicking on this link, that is http: something, right? You see that when I click on localhost :5000, which is nothing but where my application is listening on this port, and my application, the front page, nothing but the index.txt file is now looks like this. Okay, and these are the informations. If I click on this one, it will take me to the login page as well. Now with that being said, my application is now working fine in the local desktop, right? Now let's see how to deploy this application on the cloud, basically, right? The application which I created and running in a local laptop, it's accessible only from my system. If you want to make this application accessible across the multiple systems or the different users, then you need to make this application available in the internet. What does that mean? Nothing but you need to deploy this application in somewhere in the server. So here Amazon Lightsail container is acting as a server. Now we need to deploy that application there. To deploy the applications, the AWS itself tells you to follow the certain steps, which we gonna do it right away, right? So for that case, what you do is we need to create a container service for that. To create a container service, we need to run a command called. So basically, before I walk you through from the step number 3 to down the line, you need to mention you need to complete certain prerequisites as well. So here, the prerequisite for you to use Amazon Lightsail application is you need to install your application, you need to install your system with the Lightsail configurations. Nothing but you need to install your system with the Amazon Lightsail control plugins. That is nothing but Lightsail CTL. Nothing but you need to install the command line utility in your system. To install the command line utility, you can click on the documents, that is Lightsail control document. It will take you to if you have any of these systems, click on the respective links and it will take you to the installation steps. So here the installation steps for Windows is something like this. What you need to do is you need to download this Lightsail ctl.exe file, which I have already done and kept it in a file called, basically we go to the PC, I go to the C directory, and then we have a temp file. From the temp file, we have created a folder called Lightsail CTL, and then this c.exe file is being kept here. Okay, that is what these steps been dictates here. And after that, you need to make sure that you run this command, that is set path, nothing but you need to set the path in the system environmental variable. You can do these all the steps. Okay, basically post that the Amazon Lightsail CTL utility will start responding to the queries. If you are not done, then you might get an encounter. Okay, basically this is a prerequisite. Okay, so since I'm using Windows system, I have walked you through these steps. Let's say if you are using Mac, if you are using Linux, you can go to the respective links. It will guide you, like the steps that you need to follow. Similarly, if you don't have a system installed with the Docker, you can follow these commands. And if you don't have AWS CLI as well, so basically AWS CLI and Amazon Lightsail CTL commandlets works hand in hand. Both are needed, right? And your system should be installed with the AWS CLI version 2, only. Then only the Lightsail command lines will work. Okay. So basically, these are all the prerequisites. Now let's go back to the command step number 3. In the step number 3, first we need to create a Lightsail service. To create a Lightsail service, I'm just going to copy this command basically. Right now, let me do this. Let me come out of the local hosting. Let's go back and how to interact with the AWS. Okay, to interact with the AWS, what you do is you need to set the context of your AWS account by using AWS configure command. So you can do like this. Run AWS configure is nothing but you are actually setting AWS CLI context, and you need to provide the access key ID, secret, and then provide the region and the JSON. That's all. And then you can do AWS STS get caller identity. Then if it responds, which means that you have set your context correctly, caller identity, right? So if you run this command, it should respond something, right? Which means that your application, you have set the context correctly. Once you are done with that, you need to run this command. That is nothing but this command. Yeah. So I'm not going to run this command because I have already created an instance of Lightsail container service. Right, so run the command, that is AWS Lightsail create container service, and this is our service name. Power is small, scale is 1. Okay, basically this is where minimum Lightsail container instance. Okay, so I'm going to take you to my AWS account. So this is my let me take it to my AWS account. So this is my AWS account, and currently I'm in Oregon region. If I go to the main search button and click on Lightsail, it is taking me to the Lightsail. If I click on this one like this, it will take you to a separate page. It will redirect to a separate page where you can see that Amazon Lightsail is providing multiple options for hosting purpose. Why Amazon Lightsail? Because this is very quickest way to deploy any container image, or let's say you want to deploy your application on independent virtual machines, then you can create instances. Your application needs a databases, you can create a databases here. It needs a networking as well. So if you need to set up your own networking, you can do that as well. And you need certain storages, that is nothing but explicit storages, say like bucket and disk, you can create from here. You want to build your own domain and DNS names, you can also do that here, right? And finally take the backup of your application, right? Basically Amazon Lightsail is providing a gateway for quickest way to deploy an application, right? So for example, I'm a developer, and as you see in this screen, right, in my application I was supposed to create 1631 lines of code to make my application running. Okay, so each line takes me minimum like 2-3 minutes, right? Not 2-3 minutes, some one single line could take 1 hours, days, weeks, right? So think that how much time I have, how much effort I have put in here to complete 1300 1631 lines of piece of code. Okay, and along with that I also need to deal with multiple the HTML files, multiple JavaScript files, static files, right? And all together this construct a business application. So basically what I mean to say is the effort required to develop a core business application is more. You need to less worry about your hosting environment, and that is where Amazon Lightsail application like this are helping you to achieve that goal. In the sense here, AWS is taking care of your hosting environment. Your job is to just create and use it. Okay, that simple they have made it. All right, so likewise so basically once you click on this command, that is nothing but AWS Lightsail. Okay, so remember that this Lightsail command line utility only work if you have installed it on top of AWS CLI. And then it uses the create container service, and you are giving your service name something like this, and you are defining certain configurations of your the container service instance. Once I click on that command, basically it created an instance of that. You see, Flask service is nothing but it's a container instance I have created where I can deploy my container application there, right? And if I click on this one, it will give you more detail about this one. So this is where the I application did it. Okay, so basically with that, you have created a service called Amazon Lightsail containers. An instance has been created with this configuration, that is very bare minimum configuration, that is 1 GB RAM, 0. CPU, core processors with only one node. In nothing but I have only this much resource for my application, which is bare minimum because this is a demo. That's the reason I'm using bare minimum. But to make my application or to make my portfolio application working, I'm going to choose different configurations. Now with that being said, so our instance is ready. Let's go to the next step. The next step is to get the status of the that container service. Okay, so let's do that. To check the status, you can what you can do is you can do something like this. Okay, I'm going to show it here as well. You can run this command, that is AWS Lightsail get container services. In this sense, nothing but what you are doing is you're actually telling Lightsail APIs to list all the container services. So here I have one container service with the name Flask service which I created, and you see that the status of this service is running, which is good sign. Yeah. Now, so that is basically once you create a service, container service, it will take nearby 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes the status of the service should go to the ready. Once that is ready, now let's see how to do the further steps. Yeah. So now what is the next further step is now you have a container service, and container service is up and running fine. Yeah. Now let's deploy a container service with an image, right? So for that case, what we do is we need to push the application container to Lightsail with using the next command, that is step number 3C. Okay, I'm going to show you that. So basically what I do is I'm going to copy that command just like this, go back to this one, and I'm going to paste the command like this. That is AWS Lightsail push container image. This is the service. This is the to this container service. We need to push a container image of with a name like Flask container. So this basically will only work if you have your Docker daemon running in your local laptop, or else you will not be able to push the image. Okay, and then image name is like basically container image. So before you do that, you can also say like Docker PS. Okay, let's see Docker. If I do Docker PS, basically not PS. You can let's see let's directly jump to the next command, that is without being said. What I do is I'm going to say like AWS Lightsail push container image. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm pushing the new container image belongs to this this laptop into this the Lightsail one. Okay, let's see if it able to push the image. The image is already been pushed. Even I can show you in the another format if I can mimic the same scenario. This is what I have already done, and I'm also showing you the things need to be done. Okay, here we did run AWS Lightsail get container service, which I already showed in the another console. We see that the it is ready. In the sense, once it is in ready, and then we are actually running AWS Lightsail put push container image. This is the service, and this is what the command I'm running in the another tab as well, which is doing the same. You see that it is doing the same job. It's going to take a time. That's the reason I'm just parallelly showing you that how it was, right, and how it will be as well. Now I'm going to go back to this one. So basically it will take certain time, and once the the container image pushing into that particular container service gets done, you see that it will say that this image is registered to that particular container service, and the image reference is something like this. Yeah. All right, so once the image is something like this, we're gonna go to the next step, that is actually to deploy it. Before you deploy the container image into the Amazon Lightsail containers, you need to do certain further configurations. That is, underneath your root directory of your application, you need to create two files. One, the file with the name like containers.json. The another file you need to create public endpoint.json. In container.json, you need to mention like a Flask in the image. In image, you need to give this particular number, that is nothing but this number. Yeah, so this number has to be added here. And then port is nothing but you need to say like 5000 HTTP, right? Because this is what the port number our application is also listening in the Docker image. Yeah. Now next one is on the public endpoint.json. In the public endpoint.json, you just need to maintain this one, right? Basically, so you need to manage containers.json public -endpoint.json. So these are all the the required JSON file need to be kept underneath the root directory or equivalent to the directory where the Docker file is being kept, right? So after you do that, you are now good to run the next command. Okay, so let's see. Let me do that. Okay, so I have already done it for image.1. Okay, so something like that I have already done. Now let's do for .2, nothing but image version 2. So what I do is I'm gonna change this number to 2 and let's run the next command. Yeah, so for that case I'm gonna copy the same command and run it from here. So why I'm running, because so this is basically PowerShell window which I have already did it. Okay, so basically I'm gonna run it now. So looks like it has taken the command and command is responding, right, which is good sign. Basically what we did is we are running AWS Lightsail create container service deployment. This is the service name and containers. Basically, where is the containers? The containers details are present in this JSON file, that is containers.json file. Public endpoint will be available in this particular JSON file. Okay, that's what this is telling. Once you receive this response, which means that which is actually a good sign, right? So once the response has been done, basically you can also try to watch. In the sense, what you did it here is with this command, you have initiated a deployment. That is nothing but container application deployment on the Lightsail one. Okay, so let's see that how does that looks now. Now what I'm doing is I'm going back to my AWS account and going back to the containers and I'm refreshing it. You see that I'm currently in Amazon Lightsail page of my AWS account and I'm checking the status of the container instance. The container instance is Flask service and currently you see that the status is in deploy. You can also check the status in deploying by running the next command. You can also watch that particular status even from the CLI as well, that is AWS Lightsail CLIs. To do that, what I do is I'm going to run the next command. So basically you can do from both. Okay, that's what I'm trying to show you here. I didn't copy the command properly, so I'm going to copy the command again. So don't get confused. Basically one is already done, which I'm showing you. The other one is how to do, when you are trying to do it from your system, that's also been shown it here. So we're going to run this command again like this, and which actually get us the status of the service, right? The status of service is, you see that the status code is currently in deploy, which is nothing but it will gonna take some time, which for that case we need to wait. You can keep checking the status. It will be in a deploying state and it will take a nearby 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. After 2 to 3 minutes, the application will become available and then you can try to access your application. And then that application becomes internet wide accessible, not only from your system. And that is what basically that is how quickly the application can be deployed on the AWS cloud. Okay, so basically how much time did it take me to do all these jobs, right? Basically less than 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Now I'm just investing only 20 minutes to deploy my application and check if it is how does it works in the hosting environment, right? And here I'm spending less time. The maximum time I can spend on my code side, that is nothing but my application source code side. Yeah, and that is the basically main aim of this Amazon Lightsail application is all about from from the AWS. Let's see, I'm refreshing it for some time. What I do is I'm gonna keep it on a hold for a few seconds, and once the status goes into ready, then we're gonna come back. Yeah, for that case let's wait for some time. All right, after waiting couple of like nearby 30 seconds, I'm back. Now you see that if I run the command, that is AWS Lightsail get service name is this one, the current state is running, okay, which is actually a good sign. And if you try to get more details, you can also get the URL of your application, that is this HTTPS URL. Okay, now we're going to go back to the AWS console. So this is AWS console for Amazon Lightsail. And if you go here and go to the containers, you see that the status of your application is running, which is nothing but the deployment is be done, and now your application is up and running fine. Now you can, from when you go to the deployments, and there you can see that the application is being now available over the public domain, that is nothing but available over this endpoint. Okay, now we can browse this application from this HTTPS URL. If you click on this one, here you go, right? So my application is now hosted on Amazon Lightsail.com. Nothing but my application is hosted on a container service now. That is, you see that cs.amazonlightsail.com. Nothing but my application is been hosted on a container one. And now my application is giving the expected response as well. This is a desktop application, by the way. And if you click on this one, it is redirecting to a login page, which is nothing but which tell that my application is working as expected. All right. So with that being said, I have shown you the things need to be shown in this video. Finally, a kind request, please do subscribe my channel. That would really encourage me a lot. With that note, thank you, thanks a lot, and see you in the next video.